Well, it's always great to be back here in Madison. I seem to be saying that quite a few times lately. Until last year, I haven't been back for quite some time. In fact, a few decades. So it's good to be here. Our topic today is about Wisconn Valley, innovation centers, and smart cities. Before I go on, I have to make a disclaimer. There won't be any video today. I don't know if any of you actually have listened to my presentation in the past. For those of you, would you mind raising your hand? Okay. Well, there won't be a video. But I do have a couple props. It's great to have transparent podium. You can't really hide anything. So I'm just going to put it right here, which is one of the orange cones that I got from Dr. Brian Albrecht of Gateway Technical College when he was kind enough to invite me to one of his internal training meeting and symposia. So that was one of the gifts inside the bags. I'm going to talk about that later. Another thing that I brought with me, this is not a clicker on the PowerPoint slides. Actually, there won't be any slides either. It is a remote control for those of you who actually have cable TV. It says Spectrum on it, so I'm going to come back to that later too. I mentioned about talking about smart city, about innovation center and Wisconn Valley. I'm going to mix it up a little bit today and actually reverse the order of talking. I will start with smart cities first. For those of you who actually understand or know or actually quite involved with smart city development, there are a number of definitions and recognitions around the world. For a few of us, for simple people, smart city is just simply not very dumb. So a smart city or municipality or community really leverage information, computing, communication technology, actually to enable services, connect people, but also make things more efficient. We announced a Foxconn Place, Wisconn Valley Innovation Center in downtown Racine a few months ago, with the express purpose of building resources in downtown Racine to develop smart city solutions. We did that in addition to tapping into the resources, which are the technical talent, which are the human resources, but also the local supply base that we would find in the city of Racine. But that place, downtown Racine, is only 10 miles from our campus, what we call Wisconn Valley Science and Technology Park. So why would you do that when you only have a 10-mile distance where you would put an innovation center, whereas we have 3,000 acres in Mount Pleasant, Racine County? The reason is very simple. You cannot develop a smart city solution without a city. So we are partnering with the city of Racine, the county of Racine, to build solutions for smart city, and some of those is what we're going to talk about today. When we announced Foxconn Place Innovation Center a few months ago, we have been very clear about our intent. Our goals were threefold. Number one, we want to tap into the local talent. We want to work with UW, independent colleges, but also technical colleges, so that we can help build not only a future workforce, not only a development team for Foxconn, but really help cultivate a strong community and actually help build a resource pool and a job pool so that some of our children and grandchildren don't actually have to go to the East Coast or West Coast or other places for work after they graduate. But more than that, we also want to tap into the supply base. So in the case of Eau Claire, where we have our Foxconn Place, Chippewa Valley, we are very glad to work with UW Eau Claire and other education institutions They did have a renaissance in downtown, which they call the conference center. This is a state-of-the-art high-performance art center, which actually will pretend to be able to generate a lot of musical performance, art performance that actually could potentially be streamed by 8K video. So you would imagine that kind of content creation deserve a little bit more audience than just the neighborhood in Eau Claire. In Green Bay, when we announced Foxconn Place, we're going to work with the Northeast manufacturers and beyond. The New North region is one of the strongholds for manufacturing within the state of Wisconsin. So those two, along with Racine, really form the triad that we work with our partners: government, education, and business. So for Smart City, we like to look into the future. I like to look into the future not so much far enough that many of you actually would take that with a grain of salt, but we did some of that at UW Parkside when we announced the Smart City, Smart Future competition in conjunction with UW system, the Wisconsin Independent College and University system, and also the Wisconsin Technical College Association. The whole idea is to engage our community and tap into their ideas and their thinking, and maybe their conviction, and also perhaps their aspiration to do something for their own community. What does it mean for a smart city or a smart community? For the city of Superior, the definition of a smart city could be quite different for the city of Madison. So we want the local folks, the students, the staff, the faculty members, and the researchers to be part of it. Yesterday, we announced the initial first round result in terms of our competition. Several hundred participants put into their ideas, and our judges, there are 50 of them, are going through all these entries, and we should be announcing the result in early December. But to be clear, we've been pleased not just with the content, but also the participation, what they want to do, what they actually think might be interesting. We have a very simple sketch talking about an elevated highway, but a dedicated lane for a pod where you can move people. Because based on research that we have done here and overseas, many of the people moving requirement or demand really is for one person, and is not necessarily along a bus route. So a pod, which can be created by 3D printing, which would be connected to the cloud, but controlled by an automated system, can actually bring you from point A to point B, perhaps in the elevated dedicated lane from one side of the campus of Marquette University to another side. That is actually part of the entry. We have people talking about sensors. We have people talking about membranes, and idea how to actually better serve the residents in times that are good, but also in disaster areas for search and rescue. So those are the things that really not only warm our heart because of the feedback and also the participation, but really they do have ideas in mind, use cases that they can actually help and make the community better. We are gratified that the Smart City, Smart Future competition, we really only get started a few months ago, has already received rave review internationally. The Amsterdam-based UIIN, I think it's University Industry Innovation Network, is recognizing this competition as the next global practice. I think one of the representatives from UW system is going to speak there next year in Europe, talking about what we're doing here in Wisconsin that really engage our community to actually think about and build our future together. When we look into the future trends, what do we see? In the last few months, some of you have heard Foxconn talking about not just a TFT LCD fab, but my colleague, actually my boss, whom I just spoke to a few hours ago, sent his greeting and said, well, don't forget to talk about the vertical solutions. We are here not just to build a manufacturing site or even a science and technology park. We're actually building an ecosystem. We're creating vertical solutions for different industries. So when you talk about Foxconn coming here and making a commitment to the state of Wisconsin, we are talking about being an enabler of technology, talent, investment, and smart community. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to share with you a little bit more that maybe you have not heard. Foxconn has been usually quite quiet. We like to think we are the people who do more, and after we finish and accomplish, we may or may not talk about things. It kind of fits the culture here and the work ethics here. That's why we find it quite at home in Wisconsin. So when we talk about AI or artificial intelligence, we look into automation, we look at robotics, we look at how we can actually make things happen automatically. For those of you who know Foxconn history, automation is part of our DNA, our technology, even though we employ at one point at peak season about 1.3 million employees globally. That's almost 20% of the population in Wisconsin. But automation is something that we also embrace. I brought this remote control because Foxconn and our chairman, founder, CEO, Terry Goh, got his started as a young man in Upper Midwest. His first break was to create and actually produce, through injection molding, one of those channel or TV knobs. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, you probably actually belong to the last century, like I am. Back then, when you want to turn and change channels, you don't do this. You actually don't talk to it. You actually get off the couch, walk over the TV, and then you turn those knobs. If you are a little bit dated like me, you may actually even seen black and white TV. Back then, there were 3 or 4 channels. I think some of those were channel 4, 5, and maybe 27. So actually, you would turn those and you get to those channels, and sometimes nothing's happening because it's 1 a.m. at night and it's all over, unlike nowadays. But now I look at this remote control I got from my apartment in Milwaukee. I did a count. There are 63 buttons on it. So we have gone from, walking over, getting off the couch, to actually be able to change channel with a remote control. Back then, there was about 10 or 12 buttons. Now it's 60-some buttons. I quite honestly don't know how to use most of them. And if it doesn't work, there's another button in the back, which is where you check if the batteries are still there or they are dead. But for those of you who know smartphones, computer mice, and other devices, we have gone from lots of buttons to fewer buttons, and now, in some cases, no more buttons. Actually, we think that's progress. We have a lot of colleagues that we actually brought into Foxconn recently. As you know, we have been hiring, and some of those are veterans, and not only we thank for their services, but every now and then they would teach me some wisdom, and they would point to me that this device is a high-tech, futuristic device as long as you were living in the 70s. But then in the 70s, that's where we actually had our Apollo space program. They were advising me that this device actually had more buttons and control than our lunar mission programs to the Apollos. So, future actually is in the context or in the eye of the beholder. So for the people 30 or 20 or 40 years ago, this is really, really high tech. But nowadays, you got your phone, and some of you actually got your new phone with no buttons because that button sometimes actually don't work. So we actually need to think about what automation, what robotics mean for us, for our workforce, for our children, for our education. We need to actually recognize we can do better than this. And some of you might have, because you would go home and start talking to the television, and depending on which brand or product or company or solution you use, you might say, Alexis, turn on TV. So those are now progress. That's the future. A few years ago, it might not be that obvious to many of you, but a few years from now, your children and grandchildren probably would not recognize this. Just like many times when I talk about watching movies these days, I ask them if they know of a company called Blockbuster Video, because that's what I used to actually watch movies by going to the store, pick up a DVD or Blu-ray, and then after that, you return it. These days, all streaming. Foxconn came to Wisconsin, come to the United States, not just for manufacturing, but also for innovation, for the resources, for the talent pool that we'd like to partner with. Because those are the innovations that we believe would actually allow us to create the next generation solutions. Besides automation, we also look at connectedness or connections and cloud computing. Many of you actually think about, hey, how do people get educated? How do people learn? And sometimes you say, hey, things click, or you make a connection. Things get a lot smarter, a lot more intelligent when things are connected. So nowadays, you hear connected system, connected cars and videos, connected ecosystem, and connected network. The ability to do wireless connection through 5G, we mentioned about AI, aka 5G ecosystem, cannot actually be forgotten, but also you should mention about fiber. We talk about innovation centers throughout Wisconsin. Our ability to do computing, communication, and also sharing information is already there. But ability to do 8K video streaming, the ability to do video conferencing, remote consult for medical, ability to do microsurgery with the surgery in one location, and perhaps the patient, instead of being next to you at a bed, where the surgeon will be actually hunkered down with a Da Vinci system looking into the scope, the surgeon could be watching TV, could be watching an 8K video display along with his colleagues. Other doctors could be on hand just in case connectivity get dropped, but there are tremendous benefits behind that. Besides allowing a master surgeon to be available more prevalently across maybe the country or even internationally, doing procedure without traveling out of Madison or Boston or San Francisco, but allowing better care, faster care to patients is one of the examples people talk about having 8K video and high-speed connectivity. But think about that. If you have video and you're actually seeing it on TV while you're doing surgery, invariably, you can actually record that. Having the record of the surgery helps tremendously. For those who actually worry about liability, just like that video camera in front of the car, now you have to have a record of the surgery. But better than that, you can use that for training and teaching. You can use that for learning and also research afterward. For those of you who know pattern recognition, machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence, being able to recognize faces with your iPhone or actually with an 8K camera in terms of public safety and security also can be done with video. 8K video really is 120 frame of high resolution pictures. But being able to recognize a cell being a healthy cell versus a cancerous cell, a cell that is a stem cell versus a regular cell, and be able to compare with data warehouses around the world in terms of minutes, not hours, days, or weeks, or months, is tremendous progress. People have to think a little bit harder, but then also to be a bit more audacious. Another company, maybe 15, 20 years ago, thought about taking pictures around the world, leveraging those satellites, the birds that fly over the earth, that they would keep on taking pictures and every now and then have a van or car driving through your neighborhood, taking picture of your houses. Some of you actually might pick up a newspaper in the morning, get into the picture, some privacy issue, but being able to picture and actually record the entire Earth and allow you to have Google Earth might be very, very controversial and outlandish 20 years ago. Now we take that for granted. So in terms of innovation beyond automation and connected system and connected vehicles, we talk about also the world has gone E. Some of you actually know a lot better than others, e-manufacturing, e-commerce, but many of us in the field of manufacturing, we talk about electronics manufacturing. Things go electrical. If you look at the auto industry, what happened 125 years ago, the internal combustion engine is still with us. It might still be there for some years to come. But why EV, electric vehicles, are now embraced? Before it was a novelty, now actually it's not only environmentally sustainable, but allow you to have a greater acceleration from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. You used to be able to get 0 to 60 in 6 seconds with a Porsche 30 or 40 years ago, but now an EV beat those guys hands down. That's progress, I think, and if you actually pay enough premium, you can actually drive your EV in style, because those brands not only actually give you sustainability, but also give you style. But the world has gone electrical, the world has gone electronics, and therefore EV, be able to control different systems electronically, electrically, automated, but also having everything connected. Some of you may call it Internet of Things. Some of you may call it Internet of Vehicles if you're in the transportation industry. So those are the things that we see not happening 10, 20, or 30 years from now, but happening in the next 3 to 5 years. Which bring really to the last topic out of the ACES. I kind of learned that ACES from one of the folks who are actually in the transportation industry. It's called share economy. We know folks who are in the real estate industry. They are building office buildings. They're building commercial, mixed use, and residential buildings. But they have told us that these days they are making some changes. They can make some changes in terms of parking. They are making some changes in terms of parking ramp, because not as many people are now driving or owning their own cars. People prefer mobility as a convenience than owning a car as an ownership. So now they said, well, for an office with 150 or 650 employees, do you need that many parking spaces? If not, then your utilization will be different. Besides that, if your parking ramp has all these curves and actually slanted, someday when you actually don't need the parking ramp, you really cannot change it back into an office space unless the Gen Z or the millennial by then prefer walking and working in a workspace where it's slanted and looking up. I don't know. They do have some tastes that I don't understand, but that one might be difficult to achieve. So I think those are the trends that we see within the horizon that Foxconn is trying to bring to and enable within Wisconsin, within Wisconn Valley. We like to think ourselves as enabler of technology, enabler of talent, and also smart community and investment. I mentioned about technology, AI, machine learning, automation, the smarts, the voice recognitions are there already. 5G network will be there, but 5G network will take some time. But for those of you who don't know, many of our cities and interstate actually have been layered with fiber. Our goal actually is to find ways to turn those fiber from dark to lit, and ability to use them properly and also leverage them. If we can connect our different cities and rural area through a fiber network, there are tremendous benefits there. Not the least, we would like to be able to connect our innovation centers from Eau Claire to Green Bay, from Green Bay to Milwaukee, and down to Racine and Mount Pleasant. And I recognize that it's not an insurmountable path. But the way to get there is not just spending a few million or hundreds of millions of dollars as a government program. We see that as an opportunity for public-private partnership. We like that concept a lot, partly because we respond to market demands every day. We understand and need to survive based on the market input to us, the signals, the market, the consumer, our customers are telling us. If the demand is for 5 passengers per day for high-speed train from Madison to Milwaukee, it's going to be difficult. But if the demand signal said that 500 or 5,000 passengers per day linking the 2 cities, then you start asking yourself, what will be the solutions? What are the options? Besides high-speed train, would there be room for autonomous vehicle, connected vehicle linking the 2 cities? In China right now, they have a very, very successful high-speed train program. They've gone through now the 3rd phase and on to the 4th phase. So the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities are already having the benefit of high-speed train. It's very efficient, and now they're looking to branch out. But the Chinese government also has discovered that high-speed train doesn't make money. It's actually a program that you have to subsidize, even in China with the bulk of the ridership and also the populace they have there. And when they look at the interstate network they created, about the last 15, 20 years, motoring after hours here in the United States, it's been quite successful. And some of their research, some of their analysis have shown that it's actually a lot more cost-effective to create connected and autonomous network for vehicles traversing the highway in the state as opposed to actually invest in just a high-speed train network. The goal really is to have not just smart cars like the Google Waymo, but also have some intelligence on the roadside. That's what we call smart road. And those are the programs that we're looking at down in Racine and other places, both here and elsewhere. So when you see orange cones around the state, we admit I-94, we are guilty as charged. But you know, if you go beyond I-94 and other places, you see construction site progress, we call that. We might be responsible, we might be not. Actually, we have been very proud to be part of the partnership, working with the state, working with the locals, going into Washington, D.C., pleading to the US DOT about the infra grant. So when the $1.5 billion program, Wisconsin ended up getting more than 10% for one project so that we could accelerate the expansion and finishing the program at I-94, we actually feel proud. We have the pride behind that. And that brings to the point that we mentioned about someone called us a bit of the catalyst for economic development, for workforce development, and for infrastructure development for Wisconsin. We cannot take too much credit for I-94 winning the grant from US DOT. We think we help accelerate that. And I did look up in the dictionary the definition of catalyst. For those of you and actually listen to Ray mention about my background, I did have a few years of chemical engineering and chemistry here in Madison, but I had to look it up. So a catalyst, according to Webster Dictionary, is a substance that actually allow a chemical reaction to happen faster or at a much lower temperature. So I couldn't think a better way to describe Foxconn being a catalyst to come here to make things a lot faster in an environment or climate or in a weather like Wisconsin, where the temperature is sometimes as cold as it is outside, or maybe even lower. So we actually would like to be the catalyst to help all of you make things happen faster and at lower temperature, even in the wintertime. The way I think we can do that is to have partnership together. That's why we look at government partnership, we look at business partnership, we look at education partnership. The government partnership could be in Green Bay, Eau Claire, or Racine, of course, Mount Pleasant and Racine County, and also here in the state government in Madison. For business partnership, we have a number of those ongoing. Many of those we actually are not in a position to talk about, but we are very pleased to partner with Johnson Control, Advocate Aurora, and also Northwestern Mutual to create the $100 million Wisconn Valley Venture Fund to invest in early stage companies. Some of those may benefit by being here. Some of those may bring resources, company build development teams in Wisconsin. We don't know. But this is one of the goals that actually we would work on in terms of business partnership. Education partnership I mentioned earlier, besides the Smart City, Smart Future competition, many of you know us at Gateway College. We've been in Waukesha County Technical College. We work with UW system across, from Parkside to Milwaukee to Madison here. We work with independent colleges such as Catholic College and also Marquette. Those are programs that we actually are very, very pleased with and actually feel fortunate to have great partners here. That really sets very much about what many of your speakers and also Ray mentioned about earlier, why Foxconn is here in Wisconsin. The work ethics, the ability to work together and creating new alliances is actually quite clear. I want to close coming back to one point about investment. And I touch on that with this orange cone here. About 8 years ago, December 2010, I read one of the note from back then. It was a WMC event. I think people talk about unemployment at 8.1%. So the few years following that, the theme has always been jobs, jobs, jobs. I want to congratulate all of you, and some of you are in education, others in business, and still others in government. You've done a fantastic job. Now with unemployment hovering at or below 3%, jobs may not be as big an issue or challenge as before, but the right job for our people still would be an issue, still would be a challenge. And the right job for people who would actually move back here, like myself, hopefully some of yours, maybe others who actually graduated from here and gone off to the West Coast or other places that like to move back here. We have two cases in the last 2 or 3 days where people moved back to Wisconsin because of the veteran program, the job program, and also the low tax environment, the fiscal responsible government that we have here, the work ethics, the environment, the work of life, and also the quality of life is really attractive. I would be remiss to say that we won't worry about jobs. In fact, I would be remiss that we won't worry about workforce development. I think we want to make sure the folks we have in our community not only can get a job if they want one, but actually have gainful employment, actually get fulfillment out of it, and can make a living and can raise a family. I think those are still challenges, those are still issues. But for today, if you were to live here and forget everything I said, which is very often, besides remembering the orange cone or the remote control, I think we want to talk about the future besides jobs, besides workforce development. I think we want to talk about investment, i.e. in terms of foundation, in terms of ecosystem, but most importantly, in terms of infrastructure. I think looking out 5 years from now, even 10 years from now, when we look back, what was that topic 2018 when we start looking and talking about more when they were talking jobs in 2010 and talking about 2015 in terms of workforce development is infrastructure. How can we build our roads or highway to be smarter, to be more connected so that maybe in some area there's dedicated lane for freight transport, from one airport to a manufacturing site, moving people from their homes to the workplace without having them drive, but still remain to be very sustainable, electrical, automated, but also shared. How can we actually invest in our fiber network so that we can bring internet to the rural areas? Because other projects, like the Foxconn project, help sponsor that, help make it happen, help catalyze it, because it's sometimes lower temperature upstate, and also the number of population up there would be lower than in Madison or in Milwaukee. Can we actually afford that? Can we justify that? But if you can connect those places with clinics that you can do remote consult, maybe even microsurgery through fiber network and 8K video and also 8K camera, and a practitioner who are not only willing to do that, but feel comfortable doing that and think it's a great idea, that's a good thing. What else? Well, we talk about renewable energy, we talk about sustainability. One of the great resources we have here in Wisconsin is energy, and is water, and is natural resources. We don't have the lowest energy cost within the United States. That belongs to the Pacific Northwest, where they have a lot of hydropower plants over there. But due to some very smart investment here in the upper Midwest and in Wisconsin, we have one of the lower energy cost infrastructure for Wisconsin. That is one of the prime reasons I attract with Foxconn to look into Wisconsin to actually build its manufacturing site. But we can also have and expand energy option, some of those renewable, some of those actually very sustainable, but look at things as a portfolio. We talked about solar energy at UW Parkside before. A few years ago, it was more a novelty, it was heavily subsidized. Now it's not only very affordable, it's highly competitive. So those are the things that are happening already, and many of you are part of that. And I think in summary, what I'd like to bring to you is to challenge us to think what infrastructure spending and investment we would be doing a few years from now, that when we look back say, aha, that really was a great idea. Because if you look at California, look at Boston and other places, they might have worried about jobs in the past, they might worry about workforce development, but if you have a great economy, you have a great ecosystem, you have wonderful companies, you have terrific education system, you have government that is stable, has continuity, supportive, companies, people, students, family, veterans will come. And what you need at that time is be prepared. Wisconsin is ready when Foxconn came last year. I think our state, this is our state now, need to be ready and prepared when information, knowledge, population growth come with economic growth. So with that, I thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me and Foxconn to be here today. And I hope you have a fine evening or morning and afternoon. Thank you.